So far this year, I've read 60 books and very few were 5 stars. But that's gonna be for another video. Today, I'm gonna be sharing with you all my favorite book by month. So in January, I read 9 books and I actually reread a favorite. And I think it's kind of cheating saying that my favorite book of January was The Right Move because it is a reread. If I can count it, it would be The Right Move because I adore this book. I probably talk about this book in every single video or every chance I get, but this is a 6-star read for me. So if you haven't read it, anyway, I'm not gonna say that this one it is because this was one of my favorite reads of 2023. So I'm gonna be choosing Love Theoretically by Ali Hazelwood. This book I didn't give 5 stars, but it's a close to 5 stars. It's a 4.5 star read for me. This is, I think, it's my favorite Ali Hazelwood book. I binged this one. I wanted to even tab it and I was so into the story that I didn't even get a chance to. This is a rivals to lovers. She is fake dating his brother. So the premise is kind of fun and the relationship, adorbs. I loved. I'm not gonna go into each book because I just want to show you my favorites. So next up is February. I read 8 books and I think that my favorite was Throne of Glass by Sarah J Maas. I started with Throne of Glass, so this was my introduction to this universe. I still haven't finished it, but I really enjoyed it. I give this like 4.25 stars and a lot of people told me that I was gonna be bored, it was gonna be a slow read, but I actually enjoyed it. So this was my favorite read. In March, I read 4 books and my favorite was Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. I gave this book 4.5 stars, but now thinking about it, I think that if I reread this one, I'll probably give it 5 stars because I read it as an arc and I feel like I was putting so much pressure in myself to finish it quickly so I can give it a review that I didn't like savor it. So I really want, like, one of my goals for next year is rereading more books, and this is in that list of rereads that I want to do to see if this actually bumps up to being a 5-star read. I still think that Yours Truly is that girl for me, like my favorite book by Abby and one of my all-time favorites, but I think that Just for the Summer I should reread it to see if this is a 5-star read for me. If you haven't read it, this is also a book you should add to your TBR for next year. Then in April, I read 6 books and here is when I found my first 5-star read of the year. It was Magnolia Park's The Long Way Home. I actually vlogged this one, so if you saw that vlog, you probably saw me sobbing over this book. I highlighted so much that my highlighter dried up. It ran out of, like, it wasn't even working of how much I highlighted in this book. I sobbed. I felt all the emotions, and this is now one of my favorite books, one of my favorite reads of the year, if not my favorite. So of course this was my favorite book of April. If you haven't read this series, I know it's not for everyone, but you should at least give it a shot. I didn't adore the first one. I liked it. I gave it 5 stars, but it was not of those 5 stars that it's a 6 stars almost. I really enjoyed it, but this one made me like change all of my perspective towards BJ and Magnolia and the whole series. I just adored this one and I love it. I love it so much. So this was my favorite from April. Then in May, I read 5 books and my favorite was Heartstopper Volume 4. I just love this series, but I loved this one more because in this one we got to see, it focuses more on Nick's mental health and I really appreciate it and I loved this characters even more in this one. And yeah, this was my favorite read and I cry of happiness when I read about these characters, so that's really special. Like when you love something so much that you feel that you're going to cry just because you love it. I love when books make me feel that way, and this series does. So my favorite read of this month was Heartstopper Volume 4. Then in June, I read 4 books and I got the arc of The X-Vows. And you guys, this was another 5-star read. I loved this one. This was one of my Christmas presents because I needed the physical copy of this book because I need to reread it and annotate it. This book is just perfection. I feel like this is a second chance trope. If not my favorite trope, one of my top 3 favorite tropes. And it was done so well. The characters are so lovable and relatable, and just them as a couple are everything, and I adored this one. So of course it had to be my favorite of that month. Like, you're not gonna get bored at any part. You're gonna feel your heart literally because it's that good. Then in July was pretty hard to decide because I read only 3 books, but those 3 books were amazing, and of course I had to choose a favorite, and it's none other than Beach Read by Emily Henry. I finally read Beach Read and I loved it literally from the first page. It just grabbed my attention and I was so into the story, and I loved the characters, and everything about it was just what I needed at that time. So I gave it 5 stars, and I also had to buy this special edition because that's how much I love that book. I'm not a special editions girly. I can see it and admire it and not have to have it, but when I love a book, for example yours truly and Voice of Talmud, I need to have that special edition because there's just that perfect for me. So I loved January and Gus. They are one of my favorite couples now, and it was a 5-star read. I loved it. I don't know why it took me so long to read it, but I did and I loved it. So then in August, I only read 1 book. I was pretty busy the whole month. I traveled and I started my full-time job, so I was not like able or prepared to be that busy and didn't know how to manage time with reading. I still can't, but I only read 1 book, and that book was an amazing book, and another 5-star, which was Divine Rivals. I adored this one again from the first page. This was literally my perfect fantasy. Like, it had everything I look for in a fantasy. It had those times where you're like, what's gonna happen, or those times where you're just in love with their love. I feel like their love story is so beautiful. The storyline per se was amazing and I loved it. I binged this book as well. I really liked it, so 5 stars for my only read of July, and my favorite, of course. Did I say July? August. You guys, I'm tired. Then in September, I read 5 books, and I have to say that my favorite from that month was The Great Undoing. I didn't give this one 5 stars only for the reason that I'm the type of reader that if I take a lot of time for whatever reason to read a book, it just like doesn't hit the same. I feel like if I had the chance to binge this one, it would probably have been a 5 stars, but this took me almost all month because of my work or stuff that happened during that month that I was not able to binge it. So it wasn't a 5 star, but it was a 4.5 or 4.75 star. I don't remember actually. So then in October, I read 4 books, and I'm not gonna say that I didn't like the reads. Any book stood out for me that it was as easy to choose a favorite, but I decided that my favorite from that month is going to be Powerless by Lauren Roberts. I really did enjoy this one. I gave it like a 4.5, I think, or a 4. I don't remember. But I feel like this was so hyped that I was having my expectations through the roof, and I liked it, but I was not as obsessed as I thought it was going to be, or as a lot of people were, but I liked it. I haven't read the novella or Reckless yet. I am not that eager to read it, but I will continue this series. Then in November, it was another month that I only read 1 book, and that book was those months where I only read 1 book. They were great reads, so they were going to be probably my favorite read of those months. But yeah, I read Funny Story by Emily Henry during November, and I loved it. I gave this book 4.25 stars. The only reason I didn't give it 5 stars was because it didn't give me the feeling, you know, that 5-star feeling. So yeah, I loved both characters, love Emily Henry's writing. I really want to finish the books I haven't read by her in 2025, which are Book Lovers and People We Meet on Vacation. I need to read People We Meet on Vacation before the movie comes out, so that's a book I really want to read starting off the year. And during December, now that I'm recording this, it's December 26th, and maybe I'll find a favorite read after I finish this video. But currently I have read 8 books, and my favorite out of those 8 is God of Malice by Raina Kent. I am back in my dark romance era, and that book, I was not expecting to love it as much as I did. I was not expecting to binge it. I was not expecting to be as obsessed as I was with that book. I gave it 5 stars. I gave God of Malice 5 stars, and now I am craving dark romances. However, I'm gonna tell you girlies, my current read, because yep, I'm reading Magnolia Parks Into the Dark, and this has a chance, of course, to take God of Malice's place. I am not gonna be able to tell you that after I finish this one. I'm only on page 98. I started this one today at the bookstore. I went to the bookstore and took this one with me, and I'm already 98 pages in. You guys know I love this series, so God of Malice, you better watch out. However, God of Malice, I'm really excited. I even bought the second book already because I wanna read. I was between reading God of Pain and Magnolia Parks Into the Dark, but I had the Libby, borrowed from Libby, the audiobook, so I'm immersed reading this one. And yeah, anyway, the point is, so far my favorite read of December is God of Malice, but we'll soon see if it's still God of Malice. Anyway guys, let me know in the comments your favorite read from each month, or your favorite read of 2024 so far. I think my favorite overall, like all of the months, is going to be The Long Way Home. That book literally made me feel every single emotion, and I adored it. I was not expecting to be as obsessed with that book as I am. I get excited when I start talking about that book. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I really hope you had an amazing reading year. Thank you so much for watching as well. So comment your favorite read and subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you in the next one.